recorder is now on.
Well, hey guys, hello, guys and gal. Of course, hello, Callista and Phil and Bill, and here we are again. We did gather last week, but the energies were so off that, quite honestly, I don't think any of us were in the mood or in the position to do the chat last week. But here we are, 2 weeks after. Some would say not a lot has changed. You're going through the litigations and all that. But that's what we're going to chat about today. In the meanwhile, I'm saying hi to you all three and just want to check in. How are you guys doing?
Well, I'm doing great.
Go on, Bill.
Let's go with Bill. Hey, Bill.
Things are good. Of course, the government is moving slow, but the wheels of justice grind very slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine, which I look forward to.
Absolutely. Callista, how about you? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. It's a nice spring day here. It's just a beautiful day, and there's a lot going on. It seems, anyway. I've been trying to keep up with everything. But I'll just let Phil say hello to everybody, and we can come back to my little list afterwards. So, Hello everyone, and hope everyone's having a great day.
Hi Callista, hi Bill, hi Will. Yeah, I'm doing okay. I feel sharper than I think we all did last week, and I've noticed the past few days with people around me who are very energy sensitive that they've bottomed out again, feeling extremely fatigued, overwhelmed, even depressed for no reason. And then when they check on the Schumann resonance, it flatlined. It went to zero, and it corresponds to a lot of their symptoms. You can call them ascension symptoms, or maybe they've got they're just very energy sensitive. But I've noticed several people around me really feel challenged this week in the past few days, and maybe it corresponds with the new moon. But we've also had some chemtrail spraying here in California again, and I've noticed that people are starting to complain of stuffy noses, sinuses, sinus issues, congestion within a day or two of that happening. So far, knock on wood, that's not been my experience, but I think some susceptible people are noticing that, and unfortunately, we're seeing those chemtrails in the sky again. Not like they used to be, but given the nature of the time, what do you expect from the deep state? They're deploying all weapons now, and whether it's legal or in the sky or on the ground, but I'm sure we'll get into that tonight. Other than that, how are you doing, Will?
Yeah, well, I'm doing pretty good. I'm starting to really get used to being back. I've started to figure out the iPhone, and there's a feature on there called VoiceOver that allows me to actually touch the screen and be told what I'm touching. That's how I can dial in the PIN number and everything to get on board with the conference. So it's going well. It's winter here, very much so. Just hasn't snowed recently, but the snow's still on the ground and it's still damn cold. And welcome back to Canada. But all in all, it's going well. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Phil.
Sure.
So here we are, and Callista, I would like you to go through the list of kind of things maybe that we could discuss. We do know that this last week is starting to see some results go towards Trump and crew, and some others results that are quite honestly a surprise that they're still trying to prevent the Republicans from observing the vote count or the recount of the vote, and other things are happening. Rudy Giuliani had something very interesting on today about the system in Germany that was keeping a total of the counts in the states during the night of the election. So that's maybe something we'll talk about. But saying all that, how about if you just share with us your list, Callista?
Well, I was thinking this morning about this chat, and I thought, well, what's the overall thing that's happened during the week or during the time that we haven't had a chat? And I thought, well, first of all, it's pretty obvious that all is not well with regard to the voting system, because there are reports coming in from all over the place where everything's just so manipulated, and the actual machines made by Dominion are absolutely vulnerable to manipulation. And then we've got Sydney Powell, who's the hero of the day. I think she's absolutely amazing, and more power to her. And then we've got poor old Joe Biden, who's suffering from premature inauguration.
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah, well, it's like he's the president-elect. He's been officially declared by Fox News and CNN and the media, and like that matters for anything. So, okay.
Well, I think that
Go
the
on.
interesting thing about this Dominion stuff is that the software and everything was designed, first of all, to swing the votes in Venezuela towards Chavez, which is why he's been president for yonks. And so, and apparently I heard, and I think I heard on War Room the other day, that they're using the same machinery and software to record the COVID-19 results. So that would explain why there's so much false positives and people going for testing. 1 minute they're negative, the next minute they're positive, and yeah, so it seems to be all tied up with all that. And there's more that I can go on with. I mean, you know, I heard this morning that in a lot of the counties, 350% more votes than people registered to vote. 350%. So
Yeah, I heard
there's
something up
something
there
very
too.
wrong.
Yeah.
And I also heard, you know, Jack Maxey on War Room was saying that what's the point of having, you know, a recount when a lot of the votes are invalid anyway? They really just need to have a whole new election.
Yeah, or audit them to see how significant those votes are, because otherwise they're just recounting the same votes from before, including the invalid ballots, and they're just going to get more or less the same result. So they are talking about auditing and everything. And you're right, I did hear also that this Dominion system was created in Venezuela to support Chavez. Well, he's been dead now for what, 3 years or more, maybe? But Maderas has also used that system to support his legitimacy in office there in Venezuela. But what do you two think about it, Phil and Bill? What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Phil.
Phil's muted for some reason, Bill, so maybe you can just go ahead.
Okay. Well, I will say that last week I was really frustrated by the slow process. I did understand that the White Hats had everything, but it's not as simple as just throwing everything on the table all at once, which I understood. I just wasn't real happy with. And then a week passed, and here it is today, and I was feeling pretty much the same way, just tired of it and wishing that something would break. And then I listened to Alex Collier's webinar late this afternoon, his webinar from last Friday. And he had some little gems in there that really perked me up. I don't know where he's getting his information. He's got some inside information from somewhere. But I'll give you a couple of little short items that he passed on. One is that some National Guardsmen were selected or volunteered to become vote counters in multiple counties in multiple states. And they were deputized as U.S. Marshals. But they went into this undercover operation and they were accepted as vote counters or tabulators. And they went ahead and went through the process. They have a little school where they teach them how to do the job. And they specifically teach them how to steal votes in these schools. And then they sat there and they watched in the actual process as this went on time and time and time again. So that's going to be real interesting when they come before the court. And another little jewel was that the fake ballots, the fake paper ballots that appeared in the thousands and thousands, they were printed in the Chinese embassy in Houston and then delivered to multiple locations. In this one state that he was talking about, the state government supplied meals to these vote tabulators, and the fake ballots were delivered to those locations in the food trucks that were bringing the free meals. So it looks like they had a pretty involved operation.
Well,
Accidental there.
Right, and didn't Biden say sometime before the actual election that they had the best electoral fraud organized for this election and everything? I don't know if he meant to say it that way, but that's what came out of his mouth.
Yeah. What say you, Phil?
Well, like you, I've been hearing a lot of that as well. Although the tidbits from Alex are new regarding the National Guard undercover's firsthand experience. We also know, you guys haven't mentioned yet, that apparently the server for Dominion was found in a CIA building in Frankfurt, and it was confiscated. That's got everything on it. It's got all the proof. It has all the real time play by play that happened from start to finish about what happened and where, what was added, taken away, that sort of thing electronically. So apparently, we now have that, or Sidney Powell now has that in her hands. And she also has apparently eyewitness testimony, or a witness in any case, who is a Venezuelan military officer who had experience working with this same voting system when he was living in Venezuela and working for the leader there. He's now living in the United States, but since he has experience with this, he's come forward and he's going to tell how this system is employed and how they used it to rig elections. And apparently, this has been going on for decades by the Democrats. So I don't know what that's going to do, or if they have a record of other altered elections from the past. I don't know what that would do to invalidate several sitting members of Congress or Senate. But when you start hearing the rumors that very soon there's going to be at least 100 resignations of members of Congress, either through arrest or because they're just going to step down right away for unknown reasons, probably to spend more time with their family. But that might be the reason why. It might be the reason why, because they know that what got them into power is now going to be exposed and how complicit they are. And I almost seem to think that the court cases, which are supposedly just being tossed out by all these judges who are corrupt, then they appeal and it goes to the appeals courts and they are going to get thrown out because they're corrupt. And so the last place that the president's lawyers could turn to is the Supreme Court, which supposedly, now that Amy, what's her name? Amy Coney Barrett?
Amy Coney.
Yeah. Because the Chief Justice is an unknown quantity. We don't know how blackmailed Chief Justice Roberts. So you can't count on him. So you need a majority. And I think that's where it's all going to come down. They're going to be forced to present all the evidence that all the other lower courts refuse to hear. And in a worldwide venue where you cannot spin, you cannot You cannot change the narrative. You've got to state your case in front of a very smart panel, 9 people. It's all going to come out, all the proof. And given the interest, I wouldn't be surprised if those proceedings are recorded. And then it's going to be laid bare for the entire nation and the entire world to see the extent of the corruption. I don't think they're going to have a re-election. I think what they may do, this is what people who claim to know are saying, that the Supreme Court will either make Trump win by default because fraud vitiates everything. So if your contestant's being fraudulent, they're automatically out of the race, and the other person you're against wins by default. Or it is sent back to the Congress to vote on, and it has to vote by 50 states. And as of right now, I think 31 states have Republican mayors and 19 states have Democratic mayors. And I believe they have to vote by party lines. If that's the case, we would win by the Republicans would win by majority, which would also put President Trump back in for office. I have been told by someone I know who's very on the inside, because they're military, that Trump will be he will get a second term, and that this entire operation had to go down this way in order to show the people with their own eyes the depth of the corruption. But also it turned out to be the path with the least amount of violence, the least amount of civil unrest, and the least amount of damage to infrastructure, and the least loss of civilian lives. It took the longer path to do that. And apparently, even then, they're still going to have to roll through the streets of some U.S. cities to quell violence after Trump is named the victor and the legitimate president after this election.
Right. Oh, we got some music happening.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
that was my phone. Sorry about that. Yeah, it seems to be really convoluted, doesn't it? Because I heard Sidney Powell say the other day that the CIA was behind all the meddling, and apparently the server they found in Frankfurt has the true numbers on it, and the true numbers show that Biden only came through with 130 odd votes, and Trump got the rest.
Yeah, it's Rudy Giuliani's episode 87, which is today's episode, talks all about that, talks about Venezuela and how that Dominion system started there and everything. So I recommend anybody who wants to know more, go to Rudy Giuliani's episode 87 from today. But yes, they definitely found that. They found that if it was up to the original figures of the votes he received already in the earlier part of the day and the evening of the day of the election, he would, by electoral college standards, have something like 410 votes or something, and Biden was only going to have about 27 or something. I can't state the actual vote count, but that's on those machines. So it's interesting that might be something that Sidney Powell has access to. She is about to release the Kraken. Release the Kraken!
Yeah,
well, she's already done that. She said she's already released the Kraken. The Kraken has been released. Now we're seeing the fallout. Yeah, that's what she said. So the Kraken is the information that she's bringing out. And so that's all happening. But everything is connected. I was amazed today listening to Bannon's War Room, and there was a lady on there talking about Cardinal Zen. And Cardinal Zen is a spokesperson in the Vatican, and he says that there's a huge schism happening in the Catholic Church because the Pope is supporting the Communist Chinese Party. Apparently, the Pope is owned by the Chinese Communist Party, and they've taken control of the Catholic Church, and they are standing up with Soros and this other horrible man and a whole lot of other people who want to promote what she called the Great Godless Reset. and
Mm.
it all seems to be interconnected, which of course it is.
Mm.
Anyway, Bill, what do
Let's
you
not
reckon?
Well,
Mhm.
related to all of that, I understand that on election night, while all of this was going on, there was a white hat operations room that was located in the Eisenhower building next to the White House, where they were monitoring all of the vote changing going on in real time, and I'm sure recording it. And a mention was made that a Supreme Court justice was invited to sit in the operations room to observe the things that were transpiring there. And that should help a lot when this gets to the Supreme Court. They said that at
Wait,
least 2.7 million of Trump votes were deleted, plus millions of votes were flipped from Republican to Democrat, and they got it all. But Q said they a long time ago they had it all. So now that's just confirmation.
so I have a question. Um,
Shoot.
there's supposed to be a separation of powers in this country. And for example, when there's going to be a State of the Union speech, which a president holds every year around wintertime, it's very traditional for the Supreme Court justices to attend. But because they have to remain impartial, because they are judges, they do not stand, they do not applaud, they are simply there in silent observation. So so, why would a Supreme Court justice take the invitation, whose judicial branch, take an invitation from the executive branch to come in and watch lifetime, real time election fraud? Maybe that's perfectly permissible. I don't know. That just seems, it would seem to me to be something that would make that judge recusable, or because you accepted an invitation. Here, come over to our house, let's watch a crime, and now they're going to rule on it later. Is that not a conflict of interest? I just
Well,
I,
I'm sure that they covered all of that very carefully before inviting the Supreme Court justice. And probably, I don't know, but probably it's determined that the justice was only observing a situation, which should be permissible.
do you think it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg? No, I'm just kidding. Um,
No, I don't think so.
but I would like it to have been the Chief Justice Roberts, so that he knows if this guy is flippy floppy, if he is and has been blackmailed or compromised as the Chief Justice, and he was invited to come over and see with his own eyes the truth. How do you think that guy is going to rule when he goes back and receives this uh, as a case? Because one of the things I heard today, I don't know if you guys
Now,
did also, if I'll just finish real quick, is that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has the power to not hear a case that if it comes before the court. So the question was, if he is that compromised, could he, after the lower courts have exhausted all of Trump's options and Sidney Powell's options and Rudy Giuliani's options, could they bring it to the Supreme Court and then Chief Justice Roberts refused to hear it?
well,
Well,
would that
I
be the
can't think.
best thing?
Yeah, I can't think
Sorry,
of a
Bill.
better justice to be brought in than Roberts.
That's right.
Well,
Especially if he's
wasn't Roberts with the Bush administration or something?
uh, was it Bush that brought him in? He definitely voted on the Obamacare thing and switched his vote at the last moment. So he was already in power or in position by the time Obama came in. So I think he might have been brought in during the Bush times or just before that, maybe even Clinton. I'm not certain though. But it does make sense to me that if they chose him, they would choose him, so he'd have to recuse himself. So that would be his vote would not make a difference. in an ultimate vote. But I think this is pure speculation, of course, because as you said, Bill, if they're going to invite him in, they wouldn't do so in ignorance. They do so in knowledge and knowing that either this would recuse him or he could still be a neutral party and observer, but bring his information to the case itself later. I don't know. It's interesting speculation.
Actually, that puts me in mind of something that I found a bit disturbing during the week was the display of Lindsey Graham, bumping fists with Kamala Harris and generally joking around on the floor of the House or whatever it was where they were, and the fact that he's been talking with the Biden administration and ostensibly to work out what he can do in that area. And it seems to me that there's a few of these shady individuals that are sort of exposing themselves that have been working with the Trump administration, but now they seem to be fostering their interests somewhere else. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens with all that.
Well, let's not forget Lindsey Graham was a devotee to he who should not be named. So I've always wondered about him because a few times he's kind of shown his aggression and everything against Trump, like when he was trying to remove troops from Afghanistan and Syria. So if that's how he wants to play it, then he's going to be showing his true colors, and that'll be his demise. He was doing so well as a participant in the Trump plan of action over the last 4 years. But I think we'll see a lot of these rhinos expose themselves now.
Another thing that confuses me too was today I heard that Nancy Pelosi has been re-elected as Speaker of the House. Now, how can that happen when we haven't even got the votes in yet? There may not be a majority of Democrats in the House by the time all the votes have been recounted and justice is served. How does that work?
I haven't heard that at all, but common sense is that she can't be re-elected because there's not been a declaration. It's not official that the House is a Democrat majority. She would certainly carry on her position until the next president comes in.
Well, Bill and Phil, you guys heard about that at all?
I heard her speaking on TV today. I think it was One American News, which is about the only good, reliable news source out there nowadays.
Yeah.
At least that I get on my cable system. And she was saying that she will have been a speaker for 8 years. She was just finishing up 6 years, and she looks forward to 2 more years. She never specifically said that she had been placed in that position, but she was certainly talking, at least at this instance, she was talking as though it was an accepted fact.
What do you think, Phil? Did you hear that at all?
I saw the headline, and it was one of those I chose not to click on because I know ultimately Nancy Pelosi is doomed. So it didn't matter to me whether she got reelected as Speaker of the House or not. Now, the reason that there was an election at all for her is I think that this is a normal reelection of the Speaker of the House that happens independent of any presidential election. It is an election by the Congress for who they want to be the next Speaker of the House. And the reason she's Speaker of the House is, I believe it's because, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, because the Democrats have the majority in the Congress. Is that right?
I think, and I'm not going to bet any money on this, but I think the way it works is the majority party within that party only votes for the speaker, and the minority party doesn't get a vote at all.
Not for Speaker
So
of the
that
House.
means
They choose the opposition leader.
Yeah, but I don't see how that can happen until after the election and they know who's been elected and who has not.
It can't
well, I
really,
think
because I
in
don't think
normal,
the House is even meeting at this time, is it? Is it in session at this time? You've got all these new representatives who haven't even been introduced to Capitol Hill yet. So I don't know
they're
that
all at
the
home
Congress
talking to their lawyers.
I think it's just a matter that
could well be.
Pelosi is expecting to be elected Speaker of the House. She thinks that's a done deal.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well,
Okay,
that's what I was
well,
going to
let's move
say
on
was
from
that
that.
maybe, okay.
No, go for it, Bill. Phil, sorry. It's just that this is
No,
kind
it's
of
okay.
speculation, and we don't really actually know what the situation is. Is she? I know she's still acting House Speaker. You know.
Right. Well, there was a lot of talk.
Yes, Phil.
I just know there was a lot of talk that there was dissension within the Democratic Party, that they were not happy with Nancy Pelosi's leadership, and that the gang, the young up and comers, were polluting the Democrat Party enough that they could actually vote her out. So there was speculation of that. So the fact that she was reelected by her own party within Congress tells me that maybe they chose um, uh, experience over youth, and also to make it appear as if it's business as usual. Biden's been named president-elect. The House votes for their Speaker of the House of the Democrat Party, and it's just business as usual. I don't think in the end it's going to matter because, like as you said, if they find out there has been total comprehensive voter fraud across the board, not just at the presidential level, but at local levels and at Congress levels and at Senate levels, you're going to see a lot of people being forced to resign anyway. And then there's going to have to be what they call special elections. And you know that we all have an insider that we've spoken to in the past that has told me personally for a long time that one of the steps that this whole transition back to America restoring itself was going to be many, many special elections that would have to be held in order to fill vacancies that were caused by mass arrests and resignations. And I think we're just about at that point now. That's why it really doesn't matter if Nancy Pelosi was reelected as Speaker of the House or not. She's doomed. She's totally doomed. They're all doomed.
Right. Right. Okay, I think we speculated on Nancy enough. Let's move on to some of the things that have been going down. Anything else in that list of yours, Callista, that is of interest maybe to talk about now?
No, I don't have anything else on my list at the moment. So
Okay.
that was it. I was just intrigued by the way the whole Catholic Church thing and Soros and the Pope and the Chinese Communist Party and this Dominion machines and scorecard software or whatever it's called. It's all just interconnected, and it all is driving this horrible reset that they will want, where the population is diminished and we all have to stay home and wear masks and just be good little slaves. And it's just illustrating how they're trying to really stop humanity from having a human experience. This is what we're here for, to have experiences as humans in 3D, and they're trying to stop it from happening. And that's really bad.
Right. Well, they're certainly following the Agenda 2130, and I think is there now an Agenda 2050 even. Of course, Agenda 21 is actually their kind of overall comprehensive plan for the 21st century. It's not about 2021. It's kind of the comprehensive plan of for the whole century. And what is interesting to me is that the different countries, like Canada, unfortunately, and unfortunately Australia as well, are really moving towards the Agenda 21. In fact, I've heard that Justin Trudeau, our Prime Minister here in Canada, actually openly spoke of Agenda 21 and how Canada was going to try to work in accordance to the UN Agenda 21 schedule. So he's coming forward. Now, there's a couple of things that I'd like to throw in here then. Like, we know that they had what was called a 16-year plan, and that Barack Obama set it up on his end, and Nancy was supposed to finish it off. Not Nancy, Hillary. Got Nancy on the mind, Nancy Pelosi. And they would do that whole thing in the 16 years, and she would make sure that the country was slam dunked and everything. But that was interrupted. So now they seem to be rushing back to try to catch up on where they were. And that actually is going to work against them, I think, because this is the kind of thing that they had it set up, and now they're doing it ad hoc. They're trying to push things, and I think this is all going to work against them. For example, what you talked about just then about the Pope and all that. Well, in Catholic tradition, there are some predictions about the last Pope would be a black Pope, and that after that, the Catholic Church would fall. Now, interestingly enough, Francis is actually a Jesuit. In fact, he's the head of the Jesuit order. There's never been a Jesuit Pope before, and they're also called the Black Order. So he is the Black Pope. So the fact that he may be talking to Soros or Deep State through the Communist Party, that kind of suggests that this prediction, although it's maybe many thought it was going to be literally a black man would become the last Pope, and upon his demise, then everything would shut down or change. It's interesting when you look at what we just talked about, how Soros and the Chinese Communist Party might be affecting the actions of this last Jesuit Black Pope. I throw that forward to you guys.
Well, that could be where the Black Pope comes from the Jesuits.
But you see, what's intriguing to me is the Jesuits, the Vatican, the royal family, the Zionist movement. They're all spokes of that whole corruption, the whole swamp, if you take it that way. You know, that's the swamp. It's the elites. It's the Illuminati. It's the cabal. This is the black. This is all the swamp. So
yeah,
what
and
Trump is
also
doing,
Prince Charles apparently is well in there with all this organisation of, you know, reducing so-called carbon emissions and reducing the population and making people unable to move freely over the planet. He's right in with them. Apparently, William will not cooperate with them, so they're concentrating on Charles.
Yes, I've heard something, and I have also heard through, Janine and her tarot readings that Charles might not even be alive, nor the Queen herself or Philip. The whole senior royals may already be gone, or at the very least, maybe they don't have any real power anymore. Because I heard something like that also about William wants to do it right to the people and everything.
Yeah,
Don't know.
that's right. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's interesting to know who is alive and who isn't, and who. Yeah, it's just. It's very
well. Of course,
convoluted.
it is, and of course they could be clones, you know, that are out there right now, and this is most confusing for many people. This idea that there might be clones or doubles at the very least who are being used to in the public situation to present these royals as still available when they might not be. So that's interesting speculation, though. And I have been listening to Janine's tarot readings about these kind of issues, and I do recommend Tarot by Janine, her podcast, or not podcast, her what's it called?
The YouTube channel.
YouTube. Yes, my mind went blank. Yeah, the YouTube channel. If those who are interested want to get a kind of not different angle, but you're using tarot card readings as a way of getting to some information. Very good, very good.
So I don't know whether Phil and Bill have anything else they want to add to that. If not, we could wrap things up.
Well, let me make the point that I consider the turning point to be November 3rd, and that we have now passed the turning point, and things are going to be expanding in terms of revelations and corrections and indictments, and everything is going to be expanding week by week by week as we go on until, I would say, by July 20th, the public should have been pretty well exposed to the basic idea of what happened in that election.
Why July, Bill? That's way ahead of time.
Well, if I said July, I didn't mean it. I meant January 20th, the inauguration day.
Oh, okay. You threw me there. Yeah, I think you did say July.
Oh, okay.
Misheard.
Sorry about that.
I'm thinking. Oh no, that's no problem. Yeah, that's a good thought there, Bill. Good thought. That this is the Great Awakening. Now, if you remember, Cosmic Awareness did recently say that November 3rd, the day of the election, was the turning point, and it used an analogy of a mountain, and that the pre-election time that was climbing up this mountain, the third was reaching the summit, and now we're coming down on the other side. Now, mountain climbing is dangerous going up, and it's dangerous coming down. So we still have a lot of this stuff that we're going through. What I also thought was intriguing is that the 3rd of November was also the end of the Mercury retrograde 3-week cycle, and that Mars was still retrograde at the time. It's been retrograde for months. And it was supposed to go direct on the 13th. And if I'm not mistaken, Q spoke or didn't speak in those 10 days of darkness. And the 13th was like, now things are going to start opening up and will continue. So any thoughts on that point? I guess not.
Silence must mean agreement.
I guess so, yeah. But we are in a process, and this process is part of the Great Awakening. And as we know, had Trump just said, oh, these people are corrupt, nobody would take him serious, especially the way they portray him. But by actually showing them the corruption, that is what has been needed to awaken the American people. Look at what happened on Sunday when they had the March of the People for Trump, for truth and justice, against the corruption, against the stealing of the vote. I mean, 1 million people showed up around the country. I don't know how many exactly were in Washington, but there was a hell of a lot of people there. You guys heard anything about actual numbers?
Yeah, I saw Fog City Midge. She had gone along there and taken a lot of footage, and she made a compilation of it, which they showed on the latest War Room thing today. And it was just amazing. They were there. It wasn't just for Trump. They were there for themselves. They just want, a true election results and transparency, and everything was fine until the evening when Antifa and Black Lives Matter thugs came out and started bashing them all up. So it was very interesting. But they're all going back to their different states and having things happening there as well.
Right. How about you guys? You have any thoughts on the amazing march that happened? The March of the People standing up?
I think it's just clearly indicative that the bulk of the population of this country is not happy with the election fraud, and they let it be known.
And also,
I think they're going to follow up too. Go for it, Phil.
there have been several other spontaneous pro-President Trump rallies all over the country that are spreading at a grassroots level. I've gotten several, for example, messages myself on where they are weekend by weekend for the next several weeks. And it's all in the same places where many of the existing pro-Trump rallies were already occurring, but now it's more geared towards election fraud and keeping the election honest. And I know there's probably counter demonstrations at all the usual places as well. I didn't hear an exact count on the number of attendees in Washington, D.C. I did see an aerial and a photograph, and I tried to see, is that 1 million people? And I'd say it was maybe a quarter of that from what was in the frame, but still 250,000 people assembled in that square when the mainstream is maybe tens of thousands showed up. It's the same thing as his inauguration, where the mainstream media said no one showed up to watch, and of course Trump said that there was a lot of people there, and you had the fake photographs showing that Trump was being inaugurated in front of an empty field practically. So it's the same old propaganda. But I did see several aerial photographs, and there were a lot of people. It's well into the six figures, and I believe if it was, a 250,000 to 300,000, that is still a very large turnout. And there may have been even more. Again, I'm not a crowd estimation expert, but it does appear to be much larger than what CNN and others said was just a lackadaisical turnout by a bunch of distraught Trump supporters who realize that they're doomed, and it was very apparent that there was a lot of people there, much more than the mainstream had let on.
And
but it's happening everywhere.
Exactly. It wasn't just Washington that they gathered. They gathered in several cities around America, and that was hardly mentioned at all. And that, in total, there may have been 1 million plus who turned up in different marches and different peaceful protest marches. So it really, to me, really is showing that the people themselves, I think you said it, Phil, are not going to put up with this, are not going to let their vote and their election of Trump be stolen from them. Because everything indicates that this man, Trump, won with an overwhelming victory, a landslide victory. And that may yet come out. I certainly hope it will eventually come out sooner than later.
Well, one of the things that I have noticed in the past, I don't know, it's been going for a while, but especially in the past week, and maybe Bill can attest to this, is that I've seen a lot more videos and a lot more articles saying from the de facto leaders of the pro-truth movement and pro-Trump people that it's at a point now where, since the battle lines are drawn and this is all for the money, it's at a point now where Americans have to stop watching what's going on TV and the internet and actually doing something and getting physical, not violent wise, but getting up and doing something about taking back your state or your country. That it can't be a spectator sport anymore, because what is about to lower onto the battlefield for a last final stand is going to be all the propaganda that the mainstream media has, all the remaining hidden ammunition that the deep state has. And if there is a silent majority that voted 80% in the popular vote for Trump, now is the time to actually sit there and take back your country or your state. And for example, in California, we have a maniacal governor who even anybody without a sensitivity to these things, who could look at him with the volume on the TV turned off, realize this is a guy who's possessed. There is something seriously wrong with this guy. And he is leading a state that, if it were its own nation, would be approximately the seventh most powerful economy in the world. So we're a huge state. We might be ranked 8th or 9th now, since he burnt down most of the state over the past 3 or 4 years with directed energy weapons in conjunction with China, who he is intimately connected with. And by the way, they confiscated a huge number of Chinese firearms in California this week. I believe it was this week. That was earmarked for Black Lives Matter, for upcoming riots when Trump is named president. And these were intersected by Border Patrol, not ICE. What's the other agency, Bill? Border Patrol and Customs or something. Can't remember. But this was all from China. It was found in a particular warehouse that was in the under the state of California's purview, and it's very obvious that it's all about to hit the fan. And so, at a certain point, the common people, if they are the silent majority, have to do more than read the internet. They're going to have to know and what to do in terms of claiming back their power. And as many people have over this, then there is more of them. And I think this is why someone that I know who's in the military has advocated for a long time now for self-defense, be armed for eventualities that could upset infrastructure, have extra water, have extra food, just in case, because this is the money shot now, and those who want the prize the most are going to win it. And I think we're just about at that point, and I think the climax point is going to be when either the Supreme Court or the Congress certifies or elects, after all the fraud is exposed, a new president. And then you're going to have, like I said last week, a situation where if you've ever taken candy from a spoiled baby and you take the lollipop away that it thought was his, you're going to have a temper tantrum like that. And others are using that same analogy because that's what's going to happen. They're so close to victory, they think that they can taste it, and they're starting to hatch their eggs before they've counted, or count their eggs before they've hatched. And when they realize that everything that they've been wet dreaming about is a pipe dream, they're going to be upset. And this is when that silent majority, I think, is going to have to actually be that second revolution. Because if it comes down to that, the people who actually do believe in the rule of law and in morals and in the Constitution as it was organically written are going to have to actually take a stand. I just hope there's enough people left in this country that remember and appreciate that, because a lot of the younger set do not.
Well, what's also interesting to me as I watch these things unfold here is how they have set up the Democrats and the deep state. And they have gone for it over and over and over again, this overkill in the cheating process of the stealing of the election, for an example. And to me, that actually gives me hope that they also are prepared for the eventuality of some kind of armed conflict occurring when Trump is proclaimed as reelected and is the president for another 4 years. And I do not think that they will pussyfoot around with him. If weapons are brought out, there will be equal response to any aggression on that side. And I think that any kind of insurrection, any revolution where they show up with their weapons will be put down in force, and very quickly too. So it's not something you want to think about. It's not something you want to say will happen. But I do think that there will be a very, very strong response should that kind of violence be introduced. For the reason being that up till now, these ones have not been met with equal or superior force. And they've kind of been let off the hook. They're not put into jail. They're released very quickly. And so they're out at the next protest march. And another thing that's very important, that Donald Trump just the other day signed an executive order which will take away the monies that pay these people. Remember, they are paid. They're not doing it from their sense of social justice or that this is the best way. these are actually paid militants. And he, Donald Trump, just passed an executive order that will take away the assets of any foreign interests like Soros, who are in any way, shape, or form paying for this kind of thing. Now, do either of you have more information, or even Callista, if you have more information on this most recent executive order?
I understand that it went through in September.
Oh, as far back as that already. Okay. Okay. How about the two of you, Bill? Did you hear anything of that?
Actually, I think that was September 2018.
Even further. Oh.
Yeah, way
Well,
back then.
it's an addition to something. I think he's updated it or something.
Well,
But
it's just
in any
a
event,
clarification that people who do what these people have been doing are guilty of at least sedition and perhaps treason, and will be treated as enemy combatants. And the executive order just confirms that.
And I also believe he added in the qualification of auditing. Recount was one that remained unchanged, but he added in the clause of auditing, which takes a recount to another level, because now you get to examine and pull apart and inspect. And if that's still a standing, see, he put this in after the last 2018 election. And this is why everyone was, remember, all the Q people were upset because the election went very strongly towards the Democrats, and the House of Representatives stayed Democrat, but we got the Senate. And this is what Q was trying to tell people: the Senate was the goal. But in that early time after the election, or right before, leading up to it, you have this buried executive order that no one's paying attention to, that was actually a stealth maneuver that was meant to come to fruition now. And so now there's a still in effect executive order that allows the government to take apart the or the president to act according to what is still in effect. And this is essentially because there's quote unquote foreign involvement. Remember, the owners of was it Seidel, foreign owned. Dominion Software and all of that, that's foreign owned. Votes in Spain, servers in Germany, foreign interference, foreign involvement. It wasn't Russia. And then we know that there's components in the Dominion voting machines that are from communist China. So here you have all this foreign influence, supposedly counting American votes. So there's a precedent now for this executive order to actually do something very proactive once this is all shown, either in court. I imagine it's going to be in court, but it's all there, and you're going to see a lot of rapid action once that happens. And there's other executive orders that people have kind of forgotten about, such as any organization or country that's involved in corruption, quote unquote corruption, or child trafficking and that sort of thing. You get to seize their assets if they're on within American jurisdiction. And so you're going to see that coming into play as well. That's what I know about that so far without having looked in deeper to it. But it looks like they took the bait, and the trap was the executive order, and they took the bait, and now they're all going to pay.
And apparently, the Biden family and the Pelosi family and the Feinsteins are all implicated in this sort of thing. They've got their fingers in all these pies.
Well, aren't the husbands of Pelosi and Feinstein both on the board of the Dominion company, or Dominion Corporation, whatever it is?
I don't know, but I did read or hear somewhere that those families were implicated, especially with their Chinese and with the Bidens, with the Ukrainian, and the Pelosi's with the Ukraine as well. And
It was the
apparently,
husband.
yeah, and apparently Joe Biden has been charged with felony in the Ukraine. I saw that today.
See, because that was going on for quite a while. So they finally made a decision on that.
Well, he went from unnamed American to being named by name. So they've always known it was him, but they just kept his name out of it. What they've done now is they've unmasked the unnamed American and called him by his name, which is Joe Biden. And it doesn't look good when he's president-elect, as called by Associated Press, to now be named in a Ukrainian indictment for foreign interference, because he got that prosecutor fired who was trying to investigate his son, who was a pervert, a psychopath, a drug addict, and was out there getting all the money he could out in the international market and giving 50% of it to his dad, who he denied ever having any knowledge of his son's business practices. But with these seized laptops, now they know that Joe Biden knew everything. And they're so busted. Oh my God, they're so busted.
Yeah, well, didn't they call him the big man? The big man, that's Joe Biden?
Yeah, the big man. Yeah, the big guy.
You're going to say, Callista?
Well, I was going to say, do you reckon that's about it for today, guys?
Well, I'd like to say something about significant days. We've already talked about November 3rd being the turning point, and everything is downhill or down the mountain from here. But I think we have another really big day to look forward to. And I would say the day that the fake news media either collapses or is put down would be a good day to call Victory Day.
I like the way you say to put it down like a rabid dog.
So I could add to that, with your permission.
Go ahead.
Right.
Okay. We all have had a friend in the past who has given us his inside information from time to time. And although we haven't heard from him much for most of this year because of the nature of his position, he did send something to me recently, since I cannot communicate with him, that he wanted certain people to know and pass on. And this is not what I had told you guys about a week ago. This was something new. And it was brought to my attention, as far as I know, because he was too busy to do it himself, and he asked me to pass it on. But this is what he wrote. And for anyone listening, this person's in the military, and he is in a position to know. That's all I'm going to say. But what you're hearing is what I was asked to pass on to a personal group of about a dozen of us. Okay, and this is what he sent me. He says, "I know there is a lot of fear and uncertainty causing pain right now. Please remember that this course of action, the contested election, the hatred from the liberals, all of it, is the path that we know," and he's talking about the military, "that we know to be the one with the least loss of life and the least amount of violence. When Trump gets his second term, we will have to roll through the streets of some cities quelling violence. And this is the easiest path with the least violence," and he's capitalizing least, all caps. "And we get national voter ID, and we will kick the cabal out for at least a couple of generations, and we get new technologies, and we get first contact and other good positive stuff. So it is worth it, and it is the only way to go, the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. Also, pause and reflect on the awesome symmetry of God's and man's plan. Pennsylvania is the, quote, keystone state, witnessed the birth of this light in the USA, in the world over 200 years ago at the First Continental Congress. And now, all these years later, it will be the leaping off point for the new freedom of mankind and the birth of the Golden Age. Q Team has referred repeatedly to the Keystone, and now it should be plain for all in the world to see why. And so I would keep our eyes on what's going down in Pennsylvania, but it also goes to something that we've talked about over the past year on these chats about how President Trump has allegedly or was rumored to want to take the path in draining the swamp that would always result in the least amount of innocent loss of life and loss of infrastructure. And many people have complained, why is it taking so long? Many times it's because as commander in chief, he says, I want this choice. And it's usually the one that takes the longest because it's the one that results in the least projected loss of innocent life. So apparently, all the drama and all the angst that everybody is feeling right now, no matter where they are on the political spectrum about who's going to be president, what's going on with the election, the truth, and all of that, it all had to happen this way for several different reasons. But apparently, from what I've been told, and which is consistent with what I've been told in the past, is that if the goal is to transition America back to a country of integrity again under the Constitution with the least loss of infrastructure and innocent life, it had to go to this extent so the public could witness it. And that there is going to be a point after Trump is named president or elected president or however it's going to come out, where unhappy sections of the population are going to have a friendly or not so friendly visit by this time the US military, where they will be dealt with swift fury. And after which we'll be in the free and clear. And then there will not be any kind of impedance that has been obstructing the cures, the technologies, and that sort of thing. And the reason this was sent to me is because my pal knows that there's a lot of people who are very sensitive energetically, spiritually, and this is a very tough time with the energies going on for people to endure when you don't know what's going to happen. So when Q says trust the plan, and you have someone who is actually at least tangentially in cooperation with that plan and executing it, saying something with that kind of confidence, I think it's worth noting because as people go forward, we have to be reminded that oftentimes Q said God wins. So in the end, even though we're watching all this drama, there is something that is going perfectly according to plan right now, but it is such a difficult extraction that when you remove a parasite from its host, sometimes you damage it. And that's what we're seeing right now is the removal of an entrenched organism that's been here far too long. And I just want to leave you guys all with that because I didn't have a chance to say it earlier in the chat.
No, that's actually a good segue to what I wanted to say before completing for tonight. And that has to do with the spiritual understanding of all this, that this is a time that has been selected by the source, by the divine. You can say God, if that is the reference you would use for that level of consciousness and of that which is the divine. But the point is, this whole thing that's happening, even the last couple of weeks with the demoralization of the many who are Trump fans when they first heard that Biden won and they knew everything that's being stolen, that it's been a rough slog. And as I said earlier with the analogy of the mountain going up and now we're coming down, but think of it as we went through different layers to get to the top, and now we have to go through those layers on our way down again. Only this time they are going to be undone on those who perpetrated this deception, this fraud. And as spiritual beings in alignment with the divine, to understand that this is that which was needed as a way of bringing down the swamp, as a way of ending the old regime. It will not be the same going forward. Yes, we have a few weeks, few months still to go to really solidify it all. But we need to stay in that place of hope, but even more importantly, that place of faith that we will persevere. We will go through, because this is that which is the divine's will, the divine source's will. And we are part of that divine source, so it is our will too. And we have to stay focused on what we want as we move forward, so that we move into those futures that we've all dreamt about. As you know, cosmic awareness suggests that we all have chosen to be here now. This isn't a mistake that we're living in these historical times. This is by intent, our intent, before we ever entered into the physical, when we were in that spiritual state. Now, that may not be popular for a lot who want to stay in a physical status of this whole thing, but it's more than just this physical struggle. It's more than two political parties battling it out. This is about the fate of humanity, and that fate is assured because it is the divine will. The great awakening is happening now, and more people are starting to understand the nature of the corruption and evil that has been so much in control for far too long. And that is what's crumbling. That too is part of what we have to remember. That this isn't simply, two political parties fighting it out. This is about good versus evil. This is a war that's being waged. And it may not be a war like any other we've seen, but it is a war nonetheless. And that which is the divine, and that which is our will, and that which is our imagination will help us through this critical period. And that is what I wanted to leave as my closing statement for tonight. So there you have it.
Very good.
We will win.
Yes.
We will win.
Thank you.
We are winning.
Exactly. Thanks for making it a present day statement, Callista. We are
Well,
winning. Yes.
the shift of consciousness goes on, and there is no stopping it. And personally, I've kind of left hope behind in the dust and left faith behind in the dust. And I am galloping forward on my horse named Expectation. So there.
Yeah, I like it.
Hear, hear.
Okay.
Hear, hear.
I hope it's not a bucking bronc.
No,
Excellent.
but it's a good way to end the discussion, because again, we're talking about all this stuff happening in 3D, but it again is a personal and collective opportunity for the planet and the people on an individual level to confront all their fears, all their issues, to question the truth. I mean, right now I'm questioning all my answers. Think about that. I spend my whole life trying to figure out the truth. I think I arrive at it, and now I'm questioning all my answers. I'm not asking questions. I'm questioning my answers to reevaluate what and where we should be right now. And I think we're all at that crux. And so this is a big opportunity, not just politically and all of that superficial, but on the other hand, as Bill was mentioning, the shift of consciousness is a train that is bound for glory. Nothing's going to stop it. And you better get on that glory train, because this is not a time to rest on your spiritual laurels. You have to keep elevating yourself, because wherever we're going, it's getting higher and higher vibe. And to stay in resonance with that, we have to continue to do our clearing work, our healing work, getting rid of our issues, and increasing our consciousness through all the tools that we've all come to know about. But you just can't sit and be a spectator, because you'll find yourself suddenly behind the curve, and then you're going to wish you had done your inner work. And that's ultimately what this is about. And I think that is also what you were referring to, Bill, as well, or Will as well.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said this is a time of opportunity, for it is very, very much so. Opportunity on a personal level to kind of bring out some of the the inner stuff that has affected us, has programmed us, etc. It's a time of opportunity for nations, like in America, for example, but other nations as well. And thus, it's a time of opportunity for humanity itself to make this quantum leap forward. Because once we've got through that final phase of it all that we're going through right now, you won't be able to stop humanity, because that's our destiny. What is coming is a grand destiny indeed, but we just have to get through this period of time and this last attempt by the deep state to force their will on humanity. And it's going to be an intriguing couple of months, I think.
Yeah, that's an understatement. But yes, that's where it's at. Isn't that right, Bill?
Expectation.
But remember, you got to be sacred neutral on that. Just let it take you. I've had an image recently, guys, of a cork in the open waters of the ocean, and it's bobbing up and down, and sometimes it's taken under the waves, but it will always pop up, and it will always float in the current of source, and we'll get there because it's our nature to be able to get there. So I'm going to leave that as my last parting shot. Callista, any final thoughts from you?
No, I'd like to wrap it up now because we've been going for nearly an hour and a half, and you know me, I don't like it to go too long. But no, I think everything's been pretty well covered. I mean, we could go on and on for the next 2 hours, but I'm not going to bring in the whole masculine, feminine thing or anything like that, or the emotional body or whatever.
Why not? Why not?
Not just now. And so, yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for listening to us. And we hope that what we have said today has helped you along your path with your journey. And in the meantime, we wish everyone well, and we'll catch up with everyone hopefully this time next week.
Okay, then. Thanks a lot, everybody, and have a great week. Should be interesting.
Thanks, you guys. Have a good week.
Namaste to all.